Is Texas Roadhouse still the fastest cycling team in town? Well, I asked somebody who knows. Buckle up that helmet strap and clip in. It's time for the Louisville Cycling Podcast, the podcast that celebrates the people, rides, and events that make Louisville and the surrounding area a great place to ride a bike. The Texas Roadhouse Cycling team has been turning pedals around the area for quite a few years, and while the past couple might have been rebuilding years of sorts, the Roadhouse crew is never far from the podium. In this episode of the Louisville Cycling Podcast, I reached out to Curtis Tolson, director of the Texas Roadhouse team, to get a preseason forecast for 2022. You can look for a younger, more closely homegrown team in the coming year, but like all the years prior, you can expect a lot of guys going really fast and competing for wins. All right, well, Curtis, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you.
We're going to talk a lot about the Texas Roadhouse Cycling team today, but first, where are you on your cycling arc right now?
I don't know. What's the bottom of the arc called?
I don't know.
I don't know if I'm on any kind of an arc.
Are you riding much?
Well, I feel like I'm on an arc. I'm like the 2x2 kind of arc.
Which is?
Like Armageddon has hit and you're just trying to find land somewhere.
Oh, yeah. Are you riding at all much or?
Well, I'm leaving for Florida tomorrow to start riding. Okay. Theoretically.
You take that trip down to Florida pretty much annually, and you go down and just spend a week. Is that associated with your coaching business?
Yes and no. I mean, it is. Some of my athletes are there. It's a camp made up of a few guys on the team, a few guys I coach, a few guys I race against, guy that manages the team that is probably our biggest rival team. It's just a mix of people. It's just guys that can get away, have time and money to do it. And it's it's pretty cheap the way we do it. So just guys that can get away for the amount of time and want to go to Florida.
Now, how long will you stay down there and what would the riding be like? You doing like miles and miles a day, or what's a typical day like down there when you're doing your Florida trip?
Well, it's where we go is just north of Fort Myers, and it's a peninsula with no bridges that you can see Fort Myers, but you can't actually get there unless you're a really good swimmer. To get there by road, you got to kind of go back north and then go way east, cross a couple of rivers, and then come south. And it's an hour and a half drive to go 10 miles, basically.
Okay.
So people that go where we are, that's their destination. So it's like going out in Shelby County and riding. This traffic's really light, which is unusual for Florida. And most of the rides are on a 2-lane road, like would be typical around here, versus like most Florida riding is on like Shelbyville Road with a bike lane.
No, it's pretty much all flat, or is there?
Oh, it's pan flat. Yeah. You get more altitude change by the barometer changing on your, the actual elevation of a 100-mile ride down there might be 20 feet, 30 feet, depending on, unless you go over a bunch of big bridges, it might be a little bit more, but yeah, it's as flat as a pool table.
That's my kind of riding. Now, while we're on the topic of your coaching business, tell me a little bit about the athletes that you coach. Are you coaching at all levels? Are you coaching mostly just like serious racers? Who do you coach in your coaching business?
It's all over the map. I have, some corporate people that are doing it for fitness. I have some racers. I have some, people that are training for a Grand Fondo or something, it's their sport. I don't know. They're fast tourists. They don't really formally race, but they could.
Yeah.
So it's a mix.
What does your coaching process look like? Is it very customized to the individual? Do you have a foundational philosophy you use? What's the process of going through a coaching interaction look like?
Well, I mean, first it's getting to know them, figuring out what their goals are. And the athlete owns their goals. So, they're like, well, what should my goals be? I'm like, well, I can't tell you that. I can give you some parameters. And the parameters are, they need to be objectively measurable. And so most people's mistake they make when they set a goal is they're like, okay, well, I want to be able to ride faster. I want to be able to ride farther. Well, how do you measure that?
Yeah.
Right. So, for me, it's got to be like, I want to ride a certain distance in less than a certain time. I want to be able to ride 10 miles in under 25 minutes, or I want to be able to complete a century in under 5 hours. That's very measurable. Or I want to be in the top 3 of a particular race.
Yeah.
Or I want my functional threshold power to be over 250 or 300, whatever the number is. So, things that are measurable and define, and objective. So, I want to I try to eliminate the subjectivity as much as possible. So, yeah, but they own their goals. And it's my job to help them achieve them. It's their job to know why they get out of bed. They got to know their why.
And then once they've established their goals and they kind of know what they want, that process then becomes a little more customized to that goal and that individual.
Yeah, I mean, the physiological principles that most coaches operate under are the same. I mean, we're all running some kind of FTP based, that your FTP is like it's a objective. Again, we're eliminating subjectivity. If you know what your FTP is, then you know what percentage of your FTP you're training at. So that's basically becomes your intensity factor. And your intensity factor combined with duration gives you a training stress score. And then you can manipulate those training stress scores a bunch of different ways to quantify how fit you are, how tired you are, how fresh you are, and all the stuff that matters to being prepared to perform on a given day.
Yeah.
And that's really the trick. I mean, everyone can ride good from here or there, but if you want to say, I want to be riding the best I can possibly go on August 10th, that's the timing piece of it is where the coach, two things, having you fit at the right time and shortening your learning curve are really the primary job of a coach.
I did an FTP test the other day and it was 2 something. Oh yeah, too low.
Well, you didn't hire me. That's why it's too low. That's why
too low.
No, I'm kidding. There's a lot of good coaches out there. I think picking a coach is about finding someone that is, truly interested in what you're doing and fits your personality or whatever. I mean, the information is out there to apply. Now, I will say, there's having some experience is a big deal. A lot of these, when an athlete comes up with, this problem or that problem, it helps to have seen it before.
Now, when you're working with athletes who want to race, I mean, does that coaching interaction go from the physiological to the strategic and tactical?
Yeah, to the degree that it can. It depends on where the person is. I mean, like some of the kids that I coach locally, we'll go out and run, we'll run little drills here or there. Or we have little race play scenarios, and then we'll break them down. You should have done this there or that here or whatever. And, I think that's super useful because, racing is part physiology, it's part stubbornness, and it's part psychology, right?
And psychoticness.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. There's a lot of issues that we generally have.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about coaching just in case someone's interested in being coached by a multiple national world champion. How does somebody get in the loop to be able to contact you to be coached?
Yeah. So, if you're local here, I'm on, you can catch me through Discord. You can catch me on Facebook. My Facebook is Curtis Tolson Coaching. So I'm not hard to find if you're in town. If you're out of town, USA Cycling also has and Training Peaks, the website the platform that most coaches use to facilitate their plans, has a coach finder link. So, but it's word of mouth.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's shift gears a little bit and let's talk about the Texas Roadhouse Cycling team. Now, If I'm correct, you have an elite squad, a development squad, and is there a separate master squad, or is it just those two?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it's all one team. I segregate it for, budgetary reasons as much as anything. So the elite team, it varies from year to year, but they're fully supported. We race a national level race program. We're a domestic elite team this year. We do that when it makes sense. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts, but on a given year, they're generally supplied most of their equipment and travel expenses. This year, we're kind of starting. The team is kind of rebooting after all the COVID stuff. I've been like a little squirrel saving my nuts, to relaunch, and so we've done a pretty good job. We're having some equipment issues, like most of the teams, getting stuff.
Yeah,
but I did save away some, and mostly enough frames. I'm short 4 frames. So if you're out there, if you're somebody listening to this and you're looking for bikes and the shop tells you they're having a hard time getting them, it's not a sales pitch. It's real.
It's real. Yeah. What are some of the highlights? I know it was a COVID year and things were a little squirrely last year, but what were some of the 2021 highlights from the elite team?
Well, we had 2 guys win national titles on the track, Kyle Perry and Eli House. Did a lot of racing. It was more of a rebuild year because all of our Olympians and Olympic hopeful guys, basically the U.S. We housed the U.S. national track team from 2017 until the 2020 Olympics, and we started off with 8 of them, and then it became 4, and eventually it was just down to, we had 2 guys. The Olympic long team consisted of 3 riders, and we had 2 of them on our team. So it's pretty good for a little amateur team from Kentucky, where we don't even have a velodrome.
Yeah. Now, what about 2022? What's the roster look like coming up in 2022?
So all the Olympic guys like Holloway, Hedgevery, Summerhill. Well, Summerhill's still racing. He's racing for the Best Buddies pro team. He kind of was going to retire, and we let it. He went dormant, and then he ended up guest riding for the Best Buddies team, and he ended up there, and it's good. I mean, it's fine. I wish him good luck. He's a good dude.
Yeah, yeah. Who are you putting on the road this year?
Well, I'm looking at my phone. So and you mentioned a U23 team. So we don't really have a development team anymore. The development guys have now bloomed. We had 3 development guys. It was Ame Rowles, Will Bobrow, and it was Lanier.
Okay,
Lanier Ash. So Lanier is now riding for Kelly Benefits. It's more of I think they're more focused on road racing. We're more focused on crits. So, but Ame and Will they're integrating into the elite team. So, they're still U23 technically, but there's no real differentiation. We're gonna throw them into the fire and let them, not the fire, maybe the deep end.
Now, do you have riders who are replacing them to keep that development stream going?
No, I mean, there was kind of a little crop of guys that came out of Red Zone and then came out of Papa John's. And those are the guys that I'm not really recruiting U23 guys. These are guys that were kind of like, didn't have a home. And I didn't want them to, kind of lose interest or whatever. So we just they haven't had any real pressure on them to perform. So, they're going to find their role on the team and be expected to perform.
Yeah. So you got Ame and you've got Will. Who else is on that elite team?
So we have Aaron Beebe, who's been on the team a couple of years, and he came from he ran the Bissell team, and Bissell switched to mostly gravel, and he wanted to continue to road race. So we recruited him. He's in Indianapolis. And then we just talked about Ame. Ame is at U of L. He was at Lindsey Wilson, and he transferred to U of L, so he's closer. The one elite junior we have, and I'm not really, is Ben Chrisman. We just recruited him. So he's still a junior, and he's going to have the freedom to go do a big mountain bike program. He is still going to race on the road with us when he's available, but he's he's kind of a unique situation in that he can kind of do what he wants.
Yeah.
Then Cade Bickmore, who was formerly a Volo. I coached Cade when he was at Marion on the track team up there, and he's probably the most talented guy on the team. He was a double major, engineering, and I'm not sure what the second major was, but he was really busy with school the last couple of years and thought he would get out of school. So I think his upside is much bigger than maybe people might think if they don't know. Because, I mean, he's won more than a couple. He's won a lot of collegiate titles, road and track.
Okay, well.
He's got some gas. He's kind of on the national radar with the coaches and stuff. So, and he's young. He's just fresh out of college, so like 22. Then we've got Drew Dillman. So Drew does a lot of cyclocross. Drew also, he's with Ignition Coaching, and he's coaching people. So he's a good coach. If I'm not your guy, he might be. So that would be Drew's good. He's more of a road guy. He's he's all around. He does cyclocross. He can do crits. He's pretty versatile. Eli House, who I mentioned, had won the national points race title. So he's on our elite track team and road team. Not that they're different, but I mean, he will do track nationals again, and who knows, maybe worlds or something. I think he's got a big upside. We've got a new guy that I'm pretty excited about named Fergus Arthur. He's from Bloomington, and he's kind of a guy that I kept hearing about. And Fergus is big. The big thing he did last year is he went from a 5 to a 1.
Wow. And
he won the overall at Intelligentsia Cup riding by himself. And so there's he took a big team out of Austin, Texas, Torchy's Tacos, and won against 10 and put them away. Plus, he's from Bloomington, and I think he feels like maybe he got passed over by the First Internet Bank guys. And I'm like a dog. I want to own my own end zones, be on my own home territory, right? So we're lined up philosophically in terms of really trying to compete with those guys as best we can, because they've honestly had the better of us for the last few years. So trying to change that. And then the other new guy, he's a local guy, James Krause. He came from Apparis, and again, James kind of did kind of a meteoric rise through the categories, and even with limited opportunities to race with COVID, he's still showing that he's got some juice. Then we've got a guy that's been on a team. This will be his second year, full year. I think we recruited him mid-year a couple years ago, named Jonathan Fretter, and he's former Jelly Belly guy. So he's kind of on the backside of his career, but he's still at a high level. So he steps right in with some good. He's got experience, and he just kind of plugs right in. It's easy. Kyle Perry is the captain of the team. He's been around for a long time now. He's seen this team go from, ebb and flow from its best to its worst times, and he's seen it all. He's really reliable, gets in a lot of breaks, helps control a lot of races. So he's probably the glue of the team, I would say. And then let's see, Will Bobrow. So everybody knows Will Bobrow. Will's really good on the track. Going to integrate him into some bigger crits this year, hopefully. And then Will Coleman. Will Coleman lives in the Cincinnati area, and he's a really good sprinter. That's one thing that we are lacking, is a really experienced guy that we can rely on at the end of the races. But he's shown with very few reps that he can get it done, man. I mean, we put him in the deep end pretty hard right out of the gate, and he performed way above what I expected him to. So now that he's getting a little confidence, you know how dangerous confidence is, right?
Yeah.
So that's the elite team. The one guy I would add to that is a Masters rider, but we'll probably ride him in the elites a fair bit, is Jonathan Jacobs. So everybody knows JJ. He was a former elite time trial national champion, and I think he's in his early 40s now, but he can still pull some stuff back if it gets up the road. So,
who are you most excited about, but also who do you have the highest expectations for in this upcoming season?
man, I don't know. I mean, the highest expectations are for. I mean, we don't really run a team when we go into a race. It's not. We don't generally start off going, we're riding for X.
Right.
We normally let the race come to somebody, right? Like it's be represented in all the moves, and when you're in a move that you think you can win from, then work the move, and once the scenario starts, then we do generally have if none of these breakaway scenarios play out and it's a finish, then we have particular riders. So honestly, we don't really know. I mean, I know Will Coleman is going to be his number is going to get called in sprints, but I mean, what I've seen is Fergus is pretty fast as well, especially if it's been a hard race, and Eli is fast. I mean, it's gonna be situationally dependent. Cade's a good finisher, so it's we don't have a laid out plan at this point.
Now, what are some of the biggest events that you'll be going to? I mean, what does your schedule look like, and what are the races that are kind of target races on the schedule for the team?
Well, we're working through that, but a lot of them are so, USA Crits is now defunct, and USA Cycling has a new series. One of the USA Cycling's new series races conflicts with Joe Martin, so I'm not sure which one of those we'll do. That one's I think it's up in New York. So, we'll probably do the Anniston, Alabama Hammerfest or whatever race. Then we'll do Sunny King. Actually, the Hammerfest might be somewhere else. Anniston might be Sunny King. So 2 races in Alabama. Then we'll do, as a training race, we'll do the St. Louis race mid-March. The Alabama races, I think they're both after that. Then there is Athens Twilights in April. And then Tulsa is in June. I don't have the schedule right in front of me. I'm sure we'll do something Memorial Day. We'll either do Iowa or Air Force or one of those. So Air Force is on the East Coast, and then Iowa is that's Snake Alley and all that stuff. Yeah. And then Tulsa in July is a big one. Then road nationals, amateur, and we'll probably do pro nationals, because if when you buy that domestic elite team status, you get an invite into pro road nationals as well, which is a commentary on the sad state of U.S. cycling that they have to get amateur teams to do pro nationals, right?
As a Louisvillian, where's the closest place I could go and really see the full force of Texas Roadhouse race?
Probably Indianapolis. There's one of the races that's later in the season. It'll probably be in August. Is Mass Avenue and Indy Crit, and those have become, national. They're on the national calendar. This new USA race calendar, like they got included in that, and rightly so. They've done a great job. The Indy Crit goes right through the circle downtown Indianapolis, cool. Across the bricks and the fountain, the whole thing. It's really cool. They get great spectator turnouts, and the Jennifer Savar, who's the promoter that's done, she's taken that thing basically from, a one roll of do not cross tape to a real event,
Yeah. Now, who are some of the other teams that are really your biggest competition when you go to the races?
Well, our local competitor. I mean, and it's look, we go at each other pretty hard, but they're good dudes. It's First Internet Bank, and they're a damn good team. They've actually, when we had Holloway and we had Hedgeberry and Summerhill, and we had Luke Keogh, who these are all former United Healthcare guys, most of them except for Holloway, and that was arguably as good a crit team as they would compare favorably with United Healthcare's teams or the Legion team now or whoever. I mean, they were good, but they were not. They didn't have the. It felt like hired guns, I guess.
Yeah.
This team we're building now is local, regional guys that, and I'm doing it because that's the way FIB did it. They did the best job recruiting the new talent, and they have had some real, chemistry and camaraderie. Not that we didn't, but it was just it felt way more organic the way they did it. So that's what I'm taking a page out of their book and trying to do that.
I know this year USA Cycling has this whole gravel series. Will we be having a presence in the gravel series?
Yeah, we're going to do some gravel stuff. Cade in particular is wanting to do gravel, and I know Drew is really good at gravel. I can tell you a story about Drew. We were doing Dust Bowl last year, and it was a big mass start. I was riding in the Masters, and I only did the 80-mile course, but he was doing the 100-mile course, and we're hauling ass. We're going like 25 miles an hour, big. You can't see much because it's real dusty. And he goes, man, I got to pee. And I'm thinking, okay, I need to get to the front, try to slow this thing down for him. Well, he stopped and peed and caught back up before I could even get to the front.
Yeah.
And then he, just whenever he decided it was time, he just pretty much left everyone for dead.
Yeah.
He pulled a little group off the front and then dismantled the group. So he's really good at gravel. And Kyle, I'm sure, is going to try. Kyle and we got a bunch of guys that are going to do some gravel, and we're going to allow Cade Bickmore to kind of ride with the Bissell team on some gravel stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but Fergus wants to do gravel, so yeah, we'll be at some gravel races. I don't want them to do. They want to do. A couple of them want to do the Unbound 200, and I'm going to discourage that because I think it's right before Pro Road.
Yeah.
And I think a 200-mile gravel race might beat their legs up a little bit.
It takes a little out of you, yeah.
Yeah, so they might do the Unbound 100, though. I think that's totally, they could digest that and be ready to go.
As a director, when you're putting together an elite cycling team each year, what does that process look like?
Well, I mean, it's obviously it's identifying, who's leaving the team. Do you have any needs? I mean, you go through these ebbs and flows. So a team, our cupboards were pretty bare the last couple of years. So now I feel like we've had some really good recruits, and now it's a development type cycle. And then the thing is, you get these guys and you become friends with them and you develop camaraderie or whatever, and you don't really want to let them go. So once you get happy with your team, the recruiting actually, it's just filling in needs. We need a sprinter or we need a climber or whatever we need,
Yeah.
So right now it's in a development point. We've got it. I think we've got some good guys. People get hurt. They're going to get sick. They're going to get job offers, whatever. So that's not totally constant, but then the team matures, and because you didn't recruit, then your competitor, like right now, I feel like FIB they're at kind of a mature stage. They've picked their team. They've had a pretty stable team, and they haven't had the need to recruit so much. But I think their team they're reaching a point where they're going to need to do that again. It's I don't know if I'm being real clear about that, but yeah.
When you look at your team right now, where do you think the real strengths are? I know you said you race a lot of crits. I mean, where do you think you're strongest?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think right now we don't know yet. I mean, obviously we've got some guys that we know that are known quantities, and we've got some guys that are not. So it's really going to be people finding their roles and figuring that out. But I don't see us as having a superstar sprinter yet, although a couple of these guys could turn into pretty damn legit sprinters. I know we're super impressed with Will Coleman's just his nose to be in the right spot and his his willingness to go for it, and really send it when it's on. So I think he could. I mean, Fergus could. I mean, Eli could. Who knows? But we don't have that guy identified right now. So I mean, it's going to be, like I said, it's going to be try to load a brake and get a numerical advantage in a brake. It's the same stuff everybody does. Break it down.
Texas Roadhouse has been supportive of this team for quite a few years now. What does an organization like Texas Roadhouse get out of a cycling team like the one you lead?
Well, they get a sports presence. I mean, one of the things I've talked to them about is, everybody assumes that, if you go to a place like let's just say Panera, that the food there is super healthy, and they assume that because Texas Roadhouse is a steakhouse that maybe the food's less healthy or whatever. I would argue that if you looked at the menu, you could eat just as healthy at a Texas Roadhouse as you can really anywhere in town. They have, pretty much everything. Now, I happen to like steak, so I eat the filet. But, the point is, not everyone who goes to Texas Roadhouse is a bass fisherman or, they don't all drive 4x4s with 35-inch mutters. I mean, the whole population eats food there. And I think, the cycling community is seen as like probably more of, there's a lot of vegans that ride bikes. There's a lot of, progressive type personalities, whatever. I mean, so I think we just balance out the who they think their clients are.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I've even got a video clip years ago from Athens Twilight, which is probably one of the biggest criteriums in the country. There's probably 15,000 spectators there of a guy one of our guys finishing the race, and one of the spectators yelling at him, "Y'all got great steaks, baby." And so I still show that to them. So see, because they're like, skinny guys don't eat steaks. I'm like, yeah, we do.
Yeah,
not that I'm the skinny guy, but I know a lot of bike riders that would cut you for a good steak, right?
The Louisville Cycling Podcast is sponsored by United Financial Group. Let's be real. The real estate market is about as crazy as it gets right now. And in this environment, why leave one of the biggest purchases you'll ever make to a complete group of strangers? Call your bike crazy friends at United Financial Group to make sure your home purchase or refinance is smoother than a freshly paved stretch of road. Find out more at ufglending.com. Well, let's shift gears and let's go to the very first lightning round of 2022. And
Okay.
And the first question is, what equipment will we see the Roadhouse team on this year?
Well, we're going to be on Cervelo bikes. We're going to be on, we made a big switch from Shimano to SRAM. So we're going to be on SRAM parts. We're going to be on Zip wheels. We're going to be on Time pedals. Santini clothing, which in my opinion is as good as anything out there. I don't know if, we've had some really good clothing over the years, and this stuff is super nice. We're gonna have Corbell is going to be back on board for podium celebrations, hopefully. And then Athletic Brewing is going to be our presented by sponsor. And so that's a non-alcoholic, like craft beer company. And that's getting to be a thing. So, maybe we might be drinking a beer before the race, but it doesn't have alcohol in it.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
I know
right?
that. Mm-hmm.
So I think of course, Clarksville Schwinn's going to still be helping us. We're still looking for a helmet sponsor, so we're probably going to be buying our helmets and glasses this year. What have I left out that's a major?
I think you about covered it.
Yeah. So
what's it like to when a whole team shifts from something like Shimano to SRAM? I know it works a little differently. I mean, how does that figure into getting used to the equipment? Does that have any impact at all, or is that something that happens pretty quick?
I think it happens pretty quick. I mean, there are slight differences in, the sequence of how you push the buttons. I mean, I've had bikes where I go back and forth from a Shimano bike to a SRAM bike, and, then you're on a mountain bike that's got, push button
right,
or push lever shifting. I mean, and it's pretty seamless. I mean, I used to go back and forth between a motorcycle and a bicycle, and generally unless you're running it Italian style, your brake levers are backwards. So your front brake is your left on a bicycle and your right on a motorcycle. And it's never been a problem. So I can't imagine that'll be a problem.
Now that you mentioned that, I still ride motorcycles, and I don't think I've ever even thought of it before. But you're right. It's opposite.
It becomes a thing. It's just ingrained.
Yeah. So speaking of equipment, In your opinion, what do you think has been the most useful innovation for racers in the last, say, 5 or 10 years?
I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, so obviously aerodynamic improvements, the wider tires. I mean, it took me a while to buy into the wider tires, but they really do work.
Yeah.
I mean, they roll just as good down the straights, and the cornering is way improved. So, I don't know how long it's been since you were in a break and you're just hanging the hell on to some guy who's driving you through the corners faster than you want to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the wider tires, if you're with guys that have the right tire set up on, they can really punish you through the turns.
In a race, especially like a crit, I mean, I know like with a lot of other type two-wheeled, racing, tire selection is like hugely important. So, I mean, do you change tires for dry or wet crits or anything like that? Or is it pretty much the same tire on bicycles? It seems like there'd be some correlation.
We have different tread patterns. It's more of a pressure adjustment for dry versus wet most of the time. And you're also adjusting your pressure just for, pavement conditions.
Right.
The rougher it is, the lower your pressure is generally. The smoother a surface is, the higher the pressure you would run.
And I assume you guys run tubeless, right?
We are on a mix of stuff. We're running tubulars and tubeless and tubes. I mean, we're kind of eventually, I think it's going towards, tubulars are definitely getting less and less popular. I happen to have a big stack of tubulars in the basement, and I'm trying to not waste them. So we still have a few sets of tubular wheels. And then tubeless, I mean, I'm a big fan. When my first resistance to the whole disc brake thing was that, it's too slow to get a wheel change, but they've overcome a lot of that. And the other big innovation is just aerodynamics. I remember having a conversation with Daniel Holloway going, well, do you think an aero bike really matters that much in a crit team? And he said, his response was, at 60K an hour, it matters.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, these guys are hauling ass. So, and I got that new Cervelo S5 a few years ago, and I had this little hill out behind my house, and I did some really scientific aerodynamic testing.
Yeah.
And basically every time I go past this guy's mailbox, I get in the same position, and I start at 20 miles an hour, and I just see how fast it'll coast, right?
Yeah.
And my round tube felt bike, I could hit pretty close to 40. And my aero felt bike, that AR1, I could hit about 42. And I thought, man, okay, so 2 miles an hour, that's got to be significant. So then I got on the Cervelo, and now my round tube Cervelo with the disc brakes and everything, all the cables internal, I can hit about 42. And my aero, the S5, I can hit about 44, 45.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's a thing, man.
I could probably get a PR coasting downhill right now. I've got a lot of winter weight going on.
You've been training really hard, haven't you?
For those downhills, yeah. When it comes to coaching philosophy, what's one thing that you've changed your mind about recently?
Well, I don't know how recent it was. It's been kind of a slow curve, but, when I was young, it was always like, it was always about trying harder all the time and really like, probably overworking, and again, it's the people talk about all the time, is resting, but it's also kind of not, and this, me personally, it's more about not just really knee jerking too much when things happen in races, and just really trying to, being more patient and letting things play out. And then, from a coach's philosophy, kind of I guess the best thing is like a football analogy. Like when you get hit, jump right back up so the defender doesn't know that he hurt you, right? Well, I think that's dumb. I mean, I would much rather get up slow every time and act hurt. And then when they snap the ball the next time, oops, surprise, I'm not really hurt.
I'm not hurt.
Right?
Yeah.
That's more stuff like that. Just a measured kind of undersold but over-prepared kind of, kind of deal.
Right now, this time of the year, what's the most important thing for a cyclist to be doing?
Are we talking about in lieu of the snow? I mean, this is base prep time.
Yeah.
So for my people, they're generally doing some type of strength plan, and that depending on their age, depending on their experience in the gym, could be anything from Olympic style lifting to, really just core and very basic body weight stuff. So it just depends on what you're training for, what your experience is, that kind of stuff. So strength training, while the days are short and you don't have a lot of daylight and it's cold, and so you're going out and doing really long endurance rides doesn't make a lot of sense. And I would never encourage someone to sit on a trainer for, 2 hours would be my absolute max.
Yeah.
I mean, just because you can get fit doing that, but the mental damage and the mental fatigue you put in there is more of a negative in the long run. You got to remember, again, it's about being good at a certain time, not being good now, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're putting money in the bank to use it at a later date, basically. So then as the days get longer, the focus will go out of the gym and it'll go into an endurance type block. And then it will become more specialized based on what the person's training for.
Now, when it comes to racing, what have you changed your mind about recently?
Wanting to go and do it at all.
Yeah. Now, do you plan to race any this year? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I am. I'll probably do 10 races or so. It won't be. I'm going to be at more races with the elite team in a director capacity.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll probably just race when I feel like it. I don't even know.
Yeah, yeah. On your very best day, would you rather be the strongest rider in a race or the most technically savvy?
If I'm the most technically savvy, am I strong enough to kind of be in there?
Well, yeah, you're still you, but I mean, would you rather be at your full strength or just had the perfect technical race?
Well, look, I need to be. None of my success has come, or I won't say none, but it's rare for me to just manhandle people in a bike race, even when I was at racing all the time. I mean, it's more about being good enough to MacGyver something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've always been an opportunist. I mean, when I was 28 years old at my theoretical prime, I was at the Olympic Training Center and I did a VO2 test and I scored a 58. So, that's barely good enough. They basically completely discounted me at that moment, and it's like, yeah, you go over there and play with the B team
yeah.
until you're tired. And then just better yet, just go home. So, the fact that I ever won a bike race ever was, and I think that actually helps me be a better coach because, it's not just go smash people with a hammer. It's survive the volleys and just be in a position, and then don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to send it, even though you don't feel good.
Yeah.
Because especially if you're in a scenario where there are strong guys and they're overlooking you, you'd be surprised how long your leash can get sometimes. And that's how an opportunist wins bike races. They got heavy favorites that are focused on each other, and they start playing liar's poker over who's going to chase you.
Yeah, and then
by the time they decide, you're putting your hands up and getting your picture made, right?
For context, I think like someone like Greg LeMond, I think way back when he was like his VO2 max was like 78 or something.
No, he was in his 80s.
In his 80s,
he was
okay.
In the 80s. So my 58, to put that in context, I was at altitude. So at sea level, it would have converted to about like 63.
Mm-hmm.
And 70 is considered national class, 80 is considered world class.
Okay.
So, I mean, now I will go back and say that, so basically what the test said was that I had a pretty small engine, but I was very efficient. So when my economy was really good. So I got a lot out of what I had.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but I mean, I think from a coaching perspective, if you're coaching someone who, is not like going to win just on pure talent, just because they tied their shoes up that day, then having a perspective of how to read races and how to survive and little survival techniques, that goes a long way with a lot of athletes.
Yeah. And always maximizing what you have. I mean, everybody's got something.
Well, and that's the beauty of cycling. There's so many different, so many different ways to race a bike that chances are, your physiology will line up with something.
Mm-hmm. Now, why doesn't Louisville have an elite level road race or criterium?
Well, man, I don't know, because no one's putting one on, really. I mean, it just comes, and look, we've had a lot of big events here over the years. We've had cyclocross worlds, both masters and elite. We've had masters national championships on the road. We've had cyclocross national championships. We've had elite road national championships. I think there's some element of volunteer fatigue. There's a little, and, Joan Hanscom was doing a lot of stuff when she was here. I've put on some little stuff. I mean, I think with our, Texas Roadhouse put on a Louisville Metro Police Foundation race a few times, and we just tried to grow it too fast, I think, and it lost money one year is why it stopped.
Yeah.
It's getting more and more expensive to close roads down and have a good venue. And that's one of my things about, if you're going to put on a big race, it doesn't need to be over in the corner where no one's watching. We need to do it front and center. We want people to come out there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. What's the biggest challenge you've had to overcome as a cyclist?
Just injuries mostly,
Mm-hmm.
And my own, impatience.
Yeah. Yeah. How will you know Texas Roadhouse had a really successful season this year?
If we can take this group of young new guys and define their roles, get some results. I'd like to have, win several regional races and be on the podium in some of these national races, and, just get a footprint. I don't really know. I've got high hopes, but I don't really have any baseline to go on. There's so many new parts on the team. It's really a new team.
Yeah. And Curtis, I'll finish with the question I always asked at the end. Who would you like to thank?
Oh man, I wish I'd prepared for this better. Obviously all the people that helped me throughout my cycling career. I mean, people that jumped them, and I'm going to forget some. But Mike Hewitt would be one. Bob Peters would be one. Kevin Atkinson, my partner, he's running the team. He's always helped me. Bob Rowe has pushed me forever. My wife. I mean, just people that let you kind of get away with being a quasi bike racer when you should probably be doing something else. So, and all the sponsors that have through the years have helped us get places, Texas Roadhouse, obviously, and Brown Foreman has been with us in some form or fashion. We're back with Corbell. All of the suppliers, SRAM, Athletic Brewing. I'm pretty excited about that because I didn't even know that was a thing, and that business is just going crazy.
And where are they based?
I think they're in Colorado.
Okay.
So Kevin's connection there, and he, but I mean, their sales numbers are just going crazy.
Wow. Well, Curtis, I want to thank you for taking the time. I know you're kind of getting everything ready to head out to Florida tomorrow and have a blast in there. I always find out that you're going about a couple weeks too late to jump in and go with you sometime. But sometime I'd like to make that trip with you.
Well, we can go earlier. I mean, I just go whenever everybody wants to go. The reason we picked that time is because when you get back, you're coming back. We call it re-entry because it's still cold here, but it's about to turn the corner. So this little fitness that you gain from this endurance block is easily, you carry it through. You start racing not long after we get back. So
yeah.
I think the timing of it's good, but we could go sooner too.
Oh no, the timing's great. I just keep forgetting about it until it's too close to time to go.
Yeah.
What are the rides like when you go? Are you doing like 60, 80?
Oh, so yeah. So the layout is it's you're on a peninsula and you can get off of the peninsula. Some of the rides go off of it, but it's basically a bunch of neighborhoods that were put together in like probably the 1950s to the 1970s. And there's all this infrastructure, roads been built. And you look in these neighborhoods could be like the size of Lake Forest, and it's got like 3 houses in it.
Oh, wow.
So there's no traffic, and you can lay out these roads, and you're really kind of riding around in like a what would look, your Strava route's going to look like a plate of spaghetti, but it doesn't feel like it when you're riding it. The good news is you're not riding around like the same little 5-mile circuit getting bored. You feel like you're really out there going somewhere, but you can always get back to the starting point. So typically there's a 35, 40 mile point where you get back near the start. There's a 60, 70 mile point, and then 100 miles. So you have your options of doing, 30, 60, or 100 every day.
Yeah, cool. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to catch us up on Texas Roadhouse Cycling, and best of luck this year. And hopefully we'll get out and see some fun races.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Louisville Cycling Podcast. If you aren't already a follower of the show, well, head on over to your favorite podcast player and hit that follow button now. It's the best way to make sure you never miss a single episode. And while you're at it, you can find out more about this and other shows I produce at my website, barrygary.com. That's BARRYGARY.com. You can also leave ideas and feedback at the site. And if all these internets aren't your kind of thing, you can also leave a voice message by using the show call-in number 502-208-6649. Well, that's it for this episode, but we'll be back soon with more reasons why Louisville and the surrounding area is a great place to ride a bike. Right now, though, I think it's time to get out and go for a ride.